That is my hope for my children as well as all of the children for the state of Alabama.
Do you believe you would have won?
All right, we are continuing to monitor this. You're listening to Doug Jones, the senator-elect from the state of Alabama, Democrat. First time we've seen that in a quarter of a century here. But what can we make of the implications of this? From that, we got an idea that he and Roy Moore have not chatted. Roy Moore has not conceded in this race. And there's an uphill battle for Roy Moore to try to get a recount in this race. For some insight into all of that, Karl Rove is here, of course, the former White House senior advisor, deputy chief of staff, best-selling author. What do you think? Roy Moore not conceding, and apparently not indicating he's likely to anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's consequential. I don't think it matters. Doug Jones won by 1.5 points. The state law requires a recount if it's less than half a point separating the two candidates. Above that, a candidate is allowed to ask for recount, but they got to put up the money to pay for it. I don't think Roy Moore has any intention of paying for it. I think he's going to look like a spoiled sport sitting on the line, not being gracious and conceding defeat.
What do you think happened here?
Look, this guy, Roy Moore, has been around for 25 years in Alabama politics, and it is a record of controversy, and not just the controversy that emerged in November when he was accused of molesting in his 30s a 14-year-old and dating teenage girls. That was the latest controversy, but not the only controversy. He was twice ejected from the Alabama Supreme Court as Chief Justice, in the first case for defying a federal court order, and in the second case ordering the probate judges of Alabama to ignore a U.S. Supreme Court opinion. He has said controversial things over the years, that 9/11 was God's justice on America, that Ronald Reagan's quote about the Soviet Union being an evil empire could apply to America today. He supported a nutty, racist, bigoted candidate for president in 2004, the candidate of the Constitutional Union, the Constitutional Party, and then that guy underwrote his campaign for the Supreme Court. He has been in the midst of controversy ever since he stepped onto the public stage.
The president still opted for the Republican, Roy Moore, than Doug Jones.
Well, he wanted a Republican, right, and I can understand why. I mean, this is going to complicate his life enormously. 52-48 is a very tough margin in the House. Carry it down to 51-49, and you can only afford to lose two senators, two Republican senators, and you can't pass your agenda. So I understand why the president.
They're rushing through this tax cut thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
A moot point. He would be seated in January, right?
Yeah, and look, there is in special elections in Alabama that takes like a 2-week or 3-week period. The governor and the secretary of state are given time to do things, so that's not unusual. But
you know, Luther Strange was here beforehand, and of course, Luther Strange did call Doug Jones, and the two have a very amicable long-term relationship. But what kind of senator do you think Doug Jones would be? In the model of a Manchin type, or what?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
The campaign he basically said Alabama deserves better. I didn't get into issues a lot. When he did get into issues, he was interviewed about abortion and got into trouble.
Right.
But the question is going to be, what does he want to have a political career in Alabama? Because Alabama remains a deep red state. The average Republican candidate in the last 20 years, or excuse me, since 2002, has won by 16 points, and in the last nearly 10 years has won by 20 points. In fact, there have been, out of the 68 races since 2002, there have been 14 races in which the Democrats didn't statewide contest.
So you
in which they
see
put up
this
everybody.
as some sort of a big shift in thinking?
No. This was one man. The Republicans nominated the one person who could squander the seat, and he did.
Yeah. Steve Bannon, what happens to him?
Well, he'll continue to be on the stage because he likes the stage, but this was the guy who at the beginning of it said, oh, I've taken all of Mitch McConnell's donors, promised enormous support for Bannon. I didn't see any of that support emerge. I didn't see that money pour in on his behalf. I didn't see a magic army of Bannonites descend on the state to work the precincts. He did go and give 2 speeches in which he managed to insult the University of Alabama by declaring it a second-rate educational institution compared to the 2 universities that Steve Bannon, and attended Georgetown and Harvard, and he showed up looking like, I don't know, like a scruffy, out-of-work homeless guy. I mean, 3 shirts layered on each other underneath a fatigue jacket, unshaven, and ranting and raving at the so-called establishment in Washington, thereby discouraging Republicans from uniting behind his candidate. They gave no reason to unite behind their candidate except it would be a stick in the eye of Republicans in Washington. That is not a winning message, even in a deep red state like Alabama.
Given the battles here and the closeness of the Senate, are Republicans going to have a rocky 2018?
See, the Democrats say yes. I don't believe that. You have to go back to 1914 when we began electing senators on a popular basis, and there's never been a political landscape as favorable to the White House party as this one. 25 Democrats up, 8 Republicans. 10 of those Democrats are running in states that Donald Trump carried. One of the Republicans is running in a state that Hillary Clinton carried. If Republicans get good candidates in states like Missouri, where Trump won by 18 points, or Indiana by 19 points, or Montana by 22 points, or North Dakota by 24 points, or West Virginia where he carried by 42 points, or even Ohio where he carried by 8, or with the right candidate in Florida, if Governor Scott were to run, despite the fact Trump won by 1 point, that could be a very competitive race.
Karl Rove, thank you very, very much. And